amazingly, I've made a payment and my wand has turned gold.
Way.
Okay, that's cool, that's exciting, but now what I'm going to do, I think I need to upgrade my health. So I'm going to pick up the Medikit, I'm going to look at the progress bar, this is £17.49, and then it's now in my shopping basket. Again, I'm going to go for a contactless card, I'm going to tap on the contactless terminal. Again, it makes a similar transaction. This is actually host card emulation and host terminal emulation in virtual reality. And then, whoa, this is quite exciting, my health was upgraded. So, the next part of the demo I'd like to show you involves this locked door. And what I can do is I can pick up this key, and as I pick up the key, it's £105, so it's a high value upgrade. So, the key is now in my shopping basket. This time I'm going to pick the second card. I'm going to try and do a contactless transaction. And contactless transactions cannot exceed £30, reverting to AirPin. And miraculously surrounding me is a number of numerical orbs, randomised in the space around me. Now I know you can see these orbs on the screen, but in a real game environment you wouldn't be able to see these. So what's happening here is we randomise those orbs, and as I enter my pin, 5, this isn't my real pin by the way, you randomise the position and someone from the outside couldn't see which pin I'm entering. And the final digit. So we go back over to the terminal and it's going online, and they're processing the transaction, an EMV-like chip and pin transaction. Payment approved, and I take a step back and I've unlocked the door, and the door is opened, and
Kev can walk through into the warm, sunlit uplands of virtual reality payments. So I think Kev deserves a round of applause, everybody. That familiarity and that sense of confidence. For the payment geeks in the room, it's a wild guess, but I'm kind of hoping some are here. There's genuinely an EMV interaction going on between that virtual card and that virtual terminal. So the technology to make the card work is just like host card emulation in Android Pay. And on the other side, there's a set of technologies that Worldpay have built called host terminal emulation, which genuinely creates an EMV terminal in software. And the card generally goes online, gets authorization. But there's clearly some significant issues here in terms of adoption. We saw earlier on that only 5% of people have had a retail experience in virtual reality, but there are definitely some segments, some verticals that are leading out on this, and video games is clearly where it's going to start. And we know that the freemium model is really important there, right? So we want to be able to enable payments in these environments, and so we've built this to start those conversations. My sense is that over time, they won't look like this, but actually, a common theme in the kinds of presentations I give is talking about having not frictionless payments or invisible payments, but actually having translucent payments, so just visible enough, so that consent is genuinely being given and payments aren't just kind of happening without that consent. I actually think of the payment industry as something that we're behind the ball on. I think the regulators around the world will have something to say if suddenly we start taking money out of people's accounts and they don't even really know that it's happening. It's fine in an Uber or a Lyft, because they're relatively low value and they're typically used by people who can afford it. If you start taking the choice away from a mum who needs to decide whether she's going to heat the home or feed the kids, that's not going to fly. So I think consent is really important. That's one of the reasons why we built this demo. Okay, we're going to change tack now. We're going to talk about another of the research themes that Worldpay, and in particular my innovation teams, have been working on. And we're going to talk about machine-to-machine payments and the Internet of Things. So let's start by kind of trying to define what we mean and our points of departure. So what's changed? Well, the first thing is that it's now commonplace for even very low-cost devices to have some kind of sensor package. some way of actually being able to sense the environment in which it's in. You know, mobile phones now are, I mean, they literally have dozens of different sensors on them, from magnetometers and barometers, light gauges and compasses. But even, you know, even very low cost, low energy devices are now able to interact with their environment. Certainly be aware of it. The second point of departure is that there's compute power in proliferation. So you can actually do something with that. You can do it locally, you know, and even relatively low power devices have got significant horsepower, significant compute power. And if you can't do it locally, then you can burst out into a cloud environment and you can do it there. And critically, the third thing that has changed is that the cost of that, marginal cost of that compute and storage, is basically plummeted. It's almost free per compute cycle. So you've now got devices that are aware of their environment, and it's relatively straightforward for them to do something about it, to have some kind of rule, some kind of set of circumstance, something to act against. But the last thing is that there is also now a ubiquitous connectivity. So these devices are able to talk to the cloud, to each other. We've had 3G, we've had 4G, we're moving towards 5G, where you'll have extraordinary levels of bandwidth. So you put all of those things together, and you've now got this huge proliferation of devices that can interact with their environment and then do something about it. But once again, we kind of started with trying to understand how consumers feel about some of this kind of stuff. So here, this is genuinely hot off the press. These commissioned this quant research. These particular results relate to the UK. We actually have further results from a global market, but these were the ones that were actually available when we were putting the final details of the presentation together. So 24% of consumers say that they would be comfortable letting connected devices order for them. By which we don't just mean make the payment, but actually the machine make that order, make a decision. And this is definitely a trend in payments. The idea that we're going to have autonomous or semi-autonomous agents representing us in our day-to-day transactions. So your phone is already beginning to do that, but typically it's because you've interacted with it. So these are rule-based decisions, and consumers, so about a quarter of them are comfortable. Only 19% would be comfortable giving their details to a chatbot or a virtual assistant. I was quite surprised by that. And that's food for thought for Google Home and Alexa and the Apple equivalent. So there is some uncertainty, there's some discomfort. Security clearly front of mind for consumers. And you can see it here, 75% of them are worried about their connected devices being hacked, and with good cause, right? There's some amazing stories about compromised Internet of Things devices. A fantastic story over this weekend about a guy who's got a connected yacht. So he has a boat in the Mediterranean and someone's hacked it. And they're able to control his fire alarms, and they're able to control his bilge pumps, and they're able to switch on and off all sorts of things in his yacht. And there's a fantastic set of security compromises that have led to some devastating internet attacks. So the DNS attack that happened at the end of 2016 was a result of personal video recorders being compromised on a massive scale. And then, I don't know if you've been following along the litigation around a company called WeVibe. If you haven't, to spare your blushes, I won't go into the details, but they are a leading company in the burgeoning field of a new technology called teledildonics. I'll leave you to think about what that might be. You can ask me a question about it, I won't blush. So rightfully, people are worried. And then lastly, we asked about a specific use case, which is about parking. And in particular, whether people would like their cars to be helping to make those decisions. So look, the question I get asked all the time, Nick, why are you bothered about this stuff? And here's the number. This is why we're bothered about this stuff. In 1980, there were 5 billion human beings on this planet. By 1992, when I started using the internet to download X-Files episode guides in my university computer lab, there were 6 billion people alive and only maybe 1 million of them online. Today, there are 8 billion people alive, conservatively, and 5 billion of them are online. That's amazing. There's many people online today as were alive in 1980. But by 2020, the number of devices online will be 25 billion. So 5 times as many devices online as humans. And we believe that anytime there's an exchange of data, or an exchange of service, an exchange of value, there will be a payment. And that's really exciting. Because if only 20% of these devices are involved in making payments, we just doubled the size of the addressable market for payments. So that's why we're interested in this stuff. Because we genuinely think that it's going to change the world. So look, that's in the future. Let's talk about some specifics. The connected car is our bet as to where we'll really first see the Internet of Things and payments kick off. Cars are a fantastic platform for the Internet of Things. They've got great processing power. They've got great connectivity. They've also got some brilliant use cases. There's telematics for insurance, so that good, safe drivers who drive carefully and brake slowly and accelerate slowly are rewarded in their insurance premiums. And people who drive fast and recklessly, we're talking about boys, they'll pay more for their insurance. And cars can pay for their maintenance. And cars can pay for their consumables. Cars can pay for their fueling. And cars can pay for their parking and their media and all of that kind of stuff. So I think the car is something that we definitely, is the platform that we see as being a place where payments will first break out. And then, there's the connected home, and everyone's very excited about the fridge that can order milk. It's like a massive white payment wallet that sits in your kitchen. There's not really anything very complicated about putting your credit card number in a tablet that's glued to the front of your fridge. But you can start to see that there are more exciting use cases in the smart home around streaming media and connectivity. If you come to our stand, F8, you can see a demonstration we're running there of a smart home where the devices are not just making payments, they're negotiating the contracts for their energy supply. Some have got rules that say, I'll only buy low-cost power, or even only take the power off the smart solar panel on the roof, and others, because Kevin always likes to watch, I'm not going to say what Kevin likes to watch, but let's say whatever it is that Kevin likes to watch, he likes to watch in 4K, and he likes to stream that with high media and the equivalent energy costs. So those houses, those appliances can start negotiating their contracts and make the payments. But even then, you're only one step away from a human being. Where we get incredibly excited is where there are no human beings in sight, where we're on the deep Internet of Things. The example I always like to give here is a car manufacturing line. So let's imagine in the future there's a machine that puts the left front door on a Volkswagen Passat. Not one of those naughty emissions cheating Passats, but a nice, new, clean, compliant one. So the machine, it gets a chassis passed down from the previous machine up the line, and it gets a front door passed to it by another machine, and the machine also negotiates its power and its lubricants and its fixings, and then it gets paid by the next machine down the line as it delivers that car now with a front door. I know, you're asking, but Nick, why would anybody do that? Are there any accountants in the room? Come on, there must be an accountant. Not a single accountant at a payments conference. I call that victory. We can be as rude about accountants as we like. In accountancy, there is a thing called activity-based costing. You might have come across it. It's about understanding what every single activity in a business process costs. We'll imagine, if not only do we understand what it costs, but we can actually charge for it in real time. Today, in manufacturing processes, we get to the end of the month, and we tot up how much steel was used, and how much energy was used, and how many cars were produced, and how many components were used. Then an invoice is issued, and then 30 or 60 or 90 days later, a payment happens, right? Imagine the capital that is tied up in that payment process. Imagine if instead, when the value is created, the payment could occur. That's what we're excited about. But that's in the future. And that's not going to happen today. That's not going to happen next year. Although some of the big software suppliers are beginning to gear up for that, around that kind of vision. But now I'm going to hand back over to both real Kev and his assistant, Video Kev, who's going to talk.
We're going to see our smart IoT, smart parking proof of concept. So, video should start in a moment. Okay, so you're going to be seeing cars using machine-to-machine communication to seamlessly negotiate prices and payment for parking. So you can see up above and down below, there's a Lego cityscape with smart cars representing cars and phones and 3D printed chassis. Each has balance, which you can see. Oh, and a smart parking meter represented by a smartphone as well. Okay, so the cars are going to come around and they're going to go over these smart sensors and they're going to start looking for parking. Again, another one's going to come around looking for parking. You can see it on the screen. And a third car is going to come around into town looking for parking, and immediately they start machine-to-machine communicating with this smart parking meter and placing bids saying, I'll pay you this, I'll pay you that. So, what you're then going to see on the screen is each of the drivers has set a maximum they're willing to pay for parking, so upfront autonomous rules. And there's a zoom in to the auction. So a smart bidding auction progresses. So each of the cars is saying, I'll pay you this, I'll pay you a bit more, I'll pay you a bit more to the smart parking meter. And as the smart bidding auction completes, the progress bar goes down, and you can see that Worldpay 2 has won with £2.88 an hour. Reserved, and you'll see that the car has found parking. So now the sat-nav is going to seamlessly negotiate the driver to the parking bay. It goes over another smart sensor and is parked. And at this point, the balance on the car goes down and the balance on the parking meter is going to go up as the car frictionlessly pays for parking on behalf of the driver, as you can see. So we're only paying while we're occupying the space. And then I finish parking, I'm going to drive out the space over another smart sensor and I stop paying for parking. I'm a happy driver. Thank you, Video Kev. Thank you, everyone.
About building a full SDK that allows us to experiment more with this. It's called Worldpay Within. You're very welcome to Google it. It's all on GitHub. We've open sourced it. You can experiment with it. And it allows you to turn these devices into both payers and payees. And not only that, but there's another critical component, a thing that we call the trusted trigger, which deals with authentication. Because what it's basically saying is that it's saying to the machine that is providing the service, it's okay, payment's going to happen, you can release the service. We're dealing with that challenge of authentication. Having built the SDK, we then used it to run a number of hackathons. So we ran one in London, we've run one in Atlanta, we're running one in Bucharest later this year. It's been absolutely fantastic. Engagement's been incredible. The one in London, we had two 12-year-olds turn up. One of them genuinely had a skateboard in his rucksack. and they hacked an Xbox. Specifically, they hacked the Kinect cameras so that when you waved at the Xbox, a payment occurred. And the guy that won, he built a really cool Lego cityscape, a bit like this, with a home that had a solar panel and a wind turbine. And when it had an excess of power, he could advertise it and sell it to neighbouring homes. He built it in 48 hours. So the use cases are really there. Stuff is really happening, but the challenges are enormous because authentication is difficult, security is difficult. These Internet of Things devices are not built to be secure, they're built to be cheap and low cost. Payments doesn't work when things are insecure. One of the brilliant things about the cards industry is that actually the piece of plastic that we use to make payments around the world is actually quite a sophisticated computer and a radio and does wireless charging, and it's cents to produce and buy. And that's a brilliant, highly optimized piece of technology, driven principally by a need for broad acceptance and security. And those things don't really exist today in the Internet of Things. We kind of need to move in that direction. So look, we've shown you a couple of different proof of